This is Barry Zalma speaking for Claim School Incorporated with another true crime story of insurance fraud. This one, number 39, on how a person found a way off of welfare. This is another true crime story from my experience as a claims person and insurance coverage lawyer. On the second birthday of her daughter, Melissa's husband left to get a 2-liter bottle of soda. He never came home. A month later, she received a postcard from Nebraska. "I'm sowing my wild oats, Melissa. Can't be married anymore. John." Well, when they had 2 salaries coming in, Melissa could add a little to their income. Even with child care costs, working as a receptionist at a real estate office in Visalia, there was extra money left over. With John and his income gone, there wasn't enough money left from her paycheck even to pay the rent on their small 2-bedroom apartment. Melissa had no choice. She quit her job, applied for and received aid to families with dependent children. The welfare paid her rent, gave her health care, food stamps, and enough money for an occasional luxury like a new dress every 2 months from the vintage store. Melissa was not a typical welfare mother. She had no intention of ever becoming involved with a man again. She would never have another child. Melissa was bored sitting around taking care of the 2-year-old and watching television all day. She was a high school graduate. She had skills. Melissa could operate a computer and was expert in both Microsoft Word and WordPerfect word processing and Excel spreadsheet software. Melissa was an effective part-time bookkeeper and knowledgeable in the operation of Quicken. Melissa could get, without any difficulty, a job paying $15 to $20 an hour. She and her child, however, could not live as well on $15 an hour as they could on AFDC. Melissa wanted out. Soap operas infuriated her. Daytime talk shows disgusted her. And there was not one old movie she had not seen. She knew her deadbeat husband would not help. Her family were poor dirt farmers working rented land. All she needed was a nest egg, $10,000 to $12,000 to carry her through until she could get sufficient job promotions, so her earnings would let her live as good as or better than she did on welfare. Melissa was too smart to invest in the lottery. She needed to collect money with odds better than 16 million to 1. When they were married, John's most valuable asset was a 72-inch stereo color HD TV and DVR. Because of the neighborhood they lived in, John insisted they buy a tenant's homeowner's policy. The premium on that policy was paid up for another 3 months, and its limit was $15,000. Just the money Melissa needed to get off welfare. She didn't want to lose her good TV. As terrible as the shows were, the TV was her only relief from the boredom of caring for her 2-year-old. Melissa began a plan, a detailed scenario for her entry to a life of crime. She first visited the office of her last employer, and while the other employees played with the 2-year-old, Melissa made photocopies of 2 invoices that reflected her employer's recent purchase of computers and printers. With whiteout paint, she removed from the invoice the name of her employer, and Melissa later typed her own name and address over the blank spot she had created. Melissa made a new photocopy of the receipt so the whiteout was invisible. She discarded her work product, picked up her baby, and went home. When she arrived home, she called her brother, who owned a pickup truck, and he took the TV and DVR to their mom's farm. The next night, after all her neighbors were asleep, Melissa took a loose brick from the planter near the front door of her apartment and used it to break the window next to her entry door by throwing the brick through the window. She left the brick on the floor and went to bed. The next morning, early, she packed her baby in her 1997 Toyota Corolla and drove to Mother's farm outside Visalia. She left the baby with her mother for the day and then drove back to the welfare office to meet with her social worker. At the welfare office, Melissa made an absolute pest of herself. Melissa asked for additional benefits, demanded help finding a job, and told the social worker that the child was driving her crazy. Melissa needed some assistance with childcare, and when she didn't receive the assistance she wanted, she stamped her feet and began to cry. She allowed the welfare workers to help her regain composure, and by noon had left the office for lunch at a nearby McDonald's. At 1, she arrived home, knocked on the manager's door to ask for assistance. "I just got home and found the window broken by my door. I'm afraid to go in. Will you call the police?" "Of course, dear. Please come in," the manager replied as he took his cell phone from his pocket and dialed 911. While the manager was on the phone with the Visalia PD, Melissa said, "I can't understand it. Why would anybody break my window?" "I don't know," the manager replied. "I was afraid to go in," Melissa said. "There might be somebody there." "That was very wise of you. Do you have anything valuable worth stealing?" "Well, you know I'm on welfare. Before my husband disappeared, we did buy some nice things like a big TV and some computers that I used in my work." The police, believing a burglar might still be in the apartment, arrived within 3 minutes of the telephone call. They took Melissa's key and with guns drawn, they entered her apartment cautiously. They discovered the brick on the floor and an empty space where her TV and VCR used to be. The police officer invited Melissa back into her apartment once they confirmed it was unoccupied. In response to the inquiries of the officers, Melissa, with dramatic flair, told them of the loss of her 72-inch HD television, DVR, and 2 6-month-old Dell computers and printers. She told them she was in too much shock to figure out if anything else was missing. Melissa explained that as a welfare mother, she owned very little, and this loss was devastating to her. The police officers, gentlemen to the core, commiserated with her and left her with a form to fill out for any additional losses she might discover later. They asked her not to touch the windows, the doors, or any hard surfaces until the print officers arrived to see if he could pull fingerprints off any of them. She told them she would leave her key with the manager and go pick up her baby at her mother's house. Melissa wanted to avoid any possibility of touching something that could help the police discover her involvement by accident. The print officer arrived before she returned. He could only find Melissa's fingerprints and those of the baby in the apartment. Melissa, immediately on her return from her mother's farm, telephoned her insurance agent at Fast and Friendly Insurance. She told him of her loss, and within 2 days, an adjuster visited her. The adjuster treated her claim as routine and showed some empathy she was trained to convey to victims of crimes. The adjuster took a recorded statement in less than 15 minutes, collected the invoices for the computers and television sets, and told Melissa a check would be forthcoming after she had verified the receipts. "What do you mean, verify the receipts?" "Well," the adjuster said, "it's the policy of your Fast and Friendly Insurance Company to always go to the vendors to verify your purchase of the items you've claimed stolen. This is so we can make sure that we pay you the true value of the items stolen. Sometimes the replacement cost of things like television sets and computers go up. Sometimes they go down." "Oh," said Melissa, "I understand. Is there anything I can do to help?" No, I'll be back in my office tomorrow morning and we'll simply telephone the various vendors to get the present replacement costs. But thank you for your help. Thank you, Melissa said. I would really appreciate your getting us the money as soon as possible. Being here alone with the baby without a television set is going to be very difficult. I'll work as fast as I can, Melissa, the adjuster replied. Don't worry. That's what you paid your insurance premium for. The adjuster, Faith Goodley, returned to her office with the copies of the receipts and verified that Melissa's husband did in fact purchase the television and VCR at the Walmart store in Fresno. She contacted the computer store and verified the values of the individual computers, learned that the price had been reduced $500 over the last 6 months, but could not verify Melissa's purchase. They simply had no record of the name. Faith Goodley was unconcerned. Half the loss had been verified. The values had been verified. Her claims manager had been complaining for weeks that she was carrying too many claims on her pending diary and should close as many as possible. Melissa was a sweet woman who needed money. Faith added up all her numbers, telephoned Melissa, and said, I can get you a settlement for $12,432.65, Melissa, if that's agreeable to you. Oh, thank you. That seems very fair. Could you explain why the computer store had no record of your name? Oh, sure. I asked my boss at the last place of work, 123 Realty, to purchase the computers for me on their corporate account. I then paid her with cash that my husband had left me so that I could do a little secretarial work at home and make extra money. The invoice was originally issued to my boss and they gave me the receipt and typed my name over theirs so that I would have a record. Thank you, Melissa. I'll send you a proof of loss document to sign, and as soon as you get it back to me, I can get your check. Faith sent the proof of loss form out that morning and was about ready to file her closing report and ask that a check be cut when she remembered the training session the Special Investigation Unit manager of Fast, Fair, and Friendly had conducted for the entire claim staff a month before. The SIU manager who conducted the class explained to Faith and her fellow adjusters that it was imperative that all receipts are verified. She believed Melissa's explanation, but since she was a dedicated employee, she decided it was important to follow through. She telephoned Melissa's old boss and as pleasantly as she could asked, Did Melissa work for you? Yes. Did you buy a computer for her? I don't think so. Why do you ask? Because she's made claim at my insurance company for the loss of one that she told us you bought and she repaid you. Well, we've done that for some employees. It's possible. Would you like me to check? Please. In fact, I have an invoice number and date from YET Computers. Well, that's one of our vendors. I'll look. Faith hung on the line for 15 minutes, and when the employer came back online and told her that he had the invoice, it was made out to them and the computer is still sitting on the desk in the receptionist's office. Faith was devastated. She liked Melissa. She wanted to help Melissa, and her courtesy had been returned with a lie. She had no choice now. Faith walked across the aisle, presented her information to her SIU investigator. He traveled to Visalia and obtained the original invoices and a recorded statement from Melissa's ex-employer. He presented the results of Faith's investigation, a copy of the true invoice, a photograph of the allegedly stolen computer, and a transcript of the recorded statement of the employer to the Fraud Division of the State of California Department of Insurance. 2 weeks later, 4 officers of the division drove from their office in the City of Commerce to Visalia with an arrest warrant. Much to their surprise, they found the television and VCR back in Melissa's house. She was arrested for insurance fraud. Her child was placed in the care of her maternal grandmother. Melissa's attempt to get off welfare was a total success. She would spend the next year in state prison. This video was adapted from my book, Insurance Fraud Costs Everyone, and my book, Insurance Fraud, 2nd edition, which is now available as both a Kindle book, a paperback, and a hardcover from Amazon.com. Thank you for your attention.